Welcome to Bad Dog Agility, a podcast helping you reach all of your dog agility goals. Whether it's competing under the bright lights of the televised finals at Westminster or successfully navigating a homemade course in your own backyard, we'll bring you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
The show starts with your hosts, Jennifer, Esteban, and Sarah.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 310.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Synovitin OA. Is your agility dog suffering from elbow osteoarthritis? Synovitin OA can help. It's a different way to relieve the pain that causes limping and lameness. Just one simple, quick, non-surgical treatment can provide pain relief for up to 1 whole year. So if your dog's elbow pain has been keeping you off the agility course, ask your veterinarian about Synovitin OA or visit activedognow.com/learn-more. This procedure can only be performed by licensed veterinarians at veterinary hospitals permitted to use internal radiation therapy. On rare occasions, discomfort in the treated elbow has been seen in dogs that can last up to 72 hours after treatment. Short-term home care instructions must be followed after treatment to minimize extended close contact, such as co-sleeping. To review the full veterinary prescribing information, visit activedognow.com/cpinfo.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by hititboard.com and the new Teeter Teach It, an easy-to-use tool that controls the amount of tip on your teeter so you can introduce motion to your dog in a gradual way. Go to hititboard.com for the new Teeter Teach It and other training tools and toys. Use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's hititboard.com. Today, we're going to be talking about ring conflicts in agility. So, when you enter multiple dogs in a trial and you're supposed to be walking in one ring and running in another, and, those things conflict and that can put a lot of stress on the handler and sometimes stress on the dogs. And this actually came up in our VIP group. And I thought, well, I know somebody who runs a lot of dogs, and I'm sure has had a lot of conflicts at big, important events. Jennifer Crank showing up at things like Nationals with 6 dogs, showing up at Premier Cup with 5 dogs, showing up at Westminster with 4 dogs. Like, Jen has a lot of conflict. So I thought, let's go ahead and have a podcast and talk about different strategies or ways to deal with ring conflicts for the handler. So Jennifer, how much conflict are you in?
Yeah, this is something that I get asked about a lot because you said I take numerous dogs to numerous events. I've gotten very good and very skilled at navigating conflicts, being able to look at a schedule and kind of predict where I'm going to need to be when. And I do think that is an advantage. The more that I'm put in those situations, the better I get at reading a schedule. So I kind of know, okay, there's this many dogs and these height dogs are going to run slower than these height, and jumpers is going to go faster than standard. So definitely there's some practice to it. But I think the biggest thing that I will start by saying is that it is my choice to show up and run a lot of dogs, and therefore I may need to deal with the potential consequences that happen. The biggest thing that I see is people entering a lot of dogs, and I'm not talking 2 dogs, I'm talking 3, 4, 5 dogs, and then getting frustrated with the club or the gate steward or the judge that things aren't revolving around them and working around them. And I'm always trying to keep in mind when I make the choice to sign that entry form and to mail in those entries that I'm the one who's deciding to enter that many dogs. Now, I'm lucky that a lot of my dogs are in different heights. So in some regard, that makes things easier. So it's like, okay, I have 112, 116, 120, and 18. And that was Westminster. I had 4 dogs, 4 different heights. But when you get into 2 ring shows, that actually then becomes a disadvantage because now you have the potential to have crossover. Like in one ring, they run larges, and in one ring, they run smalls. So there's kind of different conflicts that we can kind of look at and address. So if we start with what I think of as the biggest one is I'm needed in 2 places at the same time. So we'll come back to my dogs are too close together. You have 2 in the same height, but 2 different rings need to be there at the same time, whether it's running or walking. The number one piece of advice I have for anybody is to always plan ahead of schedule. Walk in a group early, run and move up to the beginning of your jump height. because once you get to the end is the end, right? You can't move your dog any further down. And it's a lot harder to ask the judge, the club, the organizers to pass you in your entire jump height, go to the next height, and then come back because they want to process results and they want to process awards. So when it comes to walking, let's say the ring is small to tall and they're going to walk, 8s and 12s, and then they're going to walk 16s, and then they're going to walk 24s. If you anticipate a conflict, walk early. All right. Ask the judge, tell the ring crew, trial chairman why you're doing it. Right. Say, I'm not doing this for an advantage. I'm doing it to prevent potential conflicts. I might miss my walkthrough later. I want to be prepared. Same thing with running. At AKC Nationals, when I had conflicts, I always try to move up. At any event, I try to move up. I don't want it to seem like a competitive advantage to watch more dogs or move my dog in the running order. So I'm always going to try to move up and be proactive about thinking about the potential conflicts that I may have. So I think that's a big thing too, is to look ahead and move up in the running order. And then if you are dealing with conflicts within a jump height, so let's say you have 2 8-inch dogs and there's only 10 of them, again, move up and split them as much as you can. Don't always try to take the second dog and move them down. And in my experience, at least as far as local shows go, and frankly, even at bigger events, I've always had everybody be incredibly accommodating. If I'm proactive and I go and I say, I think I'm going to have a mistake, or I think I'm going to have a conflict, can I move a dog? And I've had judges who said like, oh yeah, we'll run one of your 12s now. We'll go run the 16s. We'll come back and grab your other 12, right? I mean, they don't want to see you struggle or have a mistake because you're running around crazy and not getting your dog warmed up and worried about it any more than you want to miss the run. So be proactive, look at the schedule, plan in advance, and move up early if possible.
So I have another question for you. So, big events, I think it's very understandable. You want to take the dogs that have qualified. You want to, this is the big event. You want to be there competing with your dogs. So, I can see having 6 dogs if you have 6 quality dogs that you've qualified. Do you at local trials, do you pick and choose dogs? Do you put yourself in that 6 dog less often? Do you kind of go in waves of like who needs what to qualify for X, Y, and Z, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. And I think that brings us to a great point I was actually thinking about prior to the podcast, knowing the topic, which is, I say kind of planning in advance, looking at the schedule. But even going before that, I actually do kind of plan out my shows based on things that will minimize conflict. So 1 ring trials versus 2 ring trials. And also which dogs go where. So absolutely. So let's say I have, 4 dogs. I might do, 2 of them on, Friday, Saturday, 2 of them Saturday, Sunday. So maybe there's a day that's crossover, or I'll pick and choose who's going to do Premier on what days. In our area, Premier tends to be a pretty small entry. So I will definitely not do everybody in Premier because I'll be more than half the class. So I'll say, okay, 1 dog gets to do Premier on Friday. The other dog gets to do Premier on Saturday. Absolutely 100%. You are spot on. And for me, mostly it's not just to avoid conflicts. It's to just for my own sanity and for fairness to the dog, of having the time to warm them up, having the time to cool them down, being able to walk a course and in 8 minutes, know that I only have to think about my strategy for 2 of the dogs versus 6 dogs. Where at nationals, you have all day, you have multiple walkthroughs. You don't have that at a local event. So it's not just planning and preparing after the show schedule is out, but planning and preparing my entries. And I do know that like certain dogs of mine will run better at certain locations. So I might be more willing to take one of them here, less willing to take another one there. Some are better when I'm local at home. Some are better if I'm going into a hotel. So yes, that is a great question, but I rarely show everybody every day when it comes to local qualifications.
I think that is awesome to know, because I think that if anybody was thinking about who runs a lot of dogs, your name has got to come to mind, right? And so then to hear that, at nationals, you're kind of forced into that mode. But when you have, when it's a local trial where every local trial, you get the same out of it in terms of it's not going to really hurt you to miss this trial with one dog or that trial with another. When you have more control over that schedule, you put yourself in that situation less. And I think that will make people who maybe feel like there's something wrong with them, that they're struggling, right? Like, why can't I, run so many dogs? Like Jen's out there running 6 and I'm struggling with 3 and, struggling to remember all of the courses and stuff like that. I think it's really nice for people to hear that you don't always do it that way, because there is a mental tax to doing that you don't always want to put yourself into. So kind of permission for people to pick and choose and not feel like they need to do everything available to them all the time. I think a lot of times, you look at that entry and you view it as, what am I eligible to run? Let me run it all. Right. And that's not the way it has to be. You can pick and choose. You can save money here. You can save time there. You can look at what runs first or last. I think another way that is good to prioritize, or a lot of people will prioritize their runs, is, as you said, I think it's a little bit easier when you have multiple dogs running the same course, right? A little bit harder when you have dogs running different courses. And I think
multi-ring courses.
Right. Well, not just that, but levels. And I think levels actually can sometimes be even harder than, let's say, one dog's doing standard and one dog's doing jumpers. I think multi-level can be harder because of nesting. You can get yourself confused because the courses are so similar in the middle. Okay, so I think it can be even extra hard when you have dogs in different levels. And so I think one of the ways that you could prioritize showing is getting the dog that is in the lower level up, right? So, as you bring a new dog in, really putting that trialing time into the lower level dog to try to get them up to the higher level, where now you're not going to have as many level to level issues between dogs, both for memorization and for conflicts.
I like that. You're really talking about optimization. And I think that's what Jennifer's doing very, very well. Maybe you're coming up and you're trying to qualify for nationals. Then, maybe put the baby dog away for a trial or two while you lock up your last couple of points and double Qs.
Yeah, 100%. I just came from a show prepping for Premier Cup, and I only took the dogs that were going to Premier Cup. I'm like, okay, let's just focus on the ones that are going to this event, not the young ones. Give them the time, minimize the conflicts. I will also say the other huge thing for me, and I definitely don't want this to go unmentioned and unaware for those listening, is I do have a ton of support and helpers to help me at all the events with the dogs. Now, sometimes it is somebody that if I say part of my team, like a training buddy or a travel buddy, like the people that went to AKC Nationals with me helped out. Hey, can you hold this dog, or would you be willing to warm up this dog while you're cooling down your dog? So I definitely don't want it to go unaware that I have a lot of helpers, right? And I have a team of people that help me, and I appreciate all of them. Anybody who pays attention outside the ring, you'll always see somebody running around with me, but it doesn't have to be that. So if you're thinking, well, I can't get a spouse to go with me, or my friend's not traveling, you'd be really surprised how many people at trials are willing to help out. Maybe it's somebody that's in your class. They run a 12-inch dog and you, run a 20-inch dog. And maybe you need to say to them, hey, can you kind of hold my dog out, or maybe walk a couple laps around the ring? I need to go over here and I need to walk this course real quick. Or, can you go down to that ring gate, and when you're checking your dog in, will you let them know I'm a potential conflict? I'm up in 6 dogs over here and I don't have time to run down there, and let them know. People are generally willing to help out, especially if they're in opposite jump heights. I mean, if you're there with one dog, kind of the standing joke is, hey, I'm going to be here for 8 hours and I'm going to run for 45 seconds. So you have to imagine that there are a lot of people that have a lot of time on their hand, and most of them are more than willing to help out. So even if you don't have a buddy or a training partner or a travel person with you that you can kind of plan in advance, you might be able to find somebody at the show to help you with a few of those things too. I know for me, my biggest conflict is not actually running in the ring. I can run in that ring and I can make that run over there. What I struggle with the most is the warming up, right? My dogs take a good 15-minute warm up. So that's where I get myself into trouble. It's like, I can go run in ring 1 and be 8 dogs away in ring 2, and I can make it over there. But in 8 dogs, I cannot get my dog out of the crate, potty them, warm them up, stretch them, and then be in the ring. So I have a lot of helpers for kind of walking them around, even just simply pottying them. And then, okay, meet me at the practice jump and we'll do our stretches, or do the practice. I always do the practice jump and a lot of the stretches, but to have them out and ready and pottied. And then same thing with cooling down. If I need to get done with one run and run over to another ring to see where it's at, I'll have somebody, cool down my dog and their dog at the same time. I know my mom and Abby Beasley and we all kind of work together. We're in the similar jump heights. Hey, we've just got done running. Will you cool mine down with yours? So I can go do this run. So help people and ask for help. There's no shame in that at all. I think the biggest thing with conflicts in my experience is be kind, be patient. Don't be the person who comes up and I just missed my run and you need to find a place to put me in. Be proactive. Think about what it is. Don't stress. I always tell people, don't stress, you'll get to run. And if you don't, it's just agility, especially at local trials. But the more you run into situations, you'll get better about managing the schedule and figuring out what works best in terms of, maybe you have a dog that you need to prioritize. Like in novice, you mentioned the different levels, there might only be 8 dogs in novice. So you can't miss that run. They're going to tear the course down. Where in masters, you're going to have 162 dogs running. So that would be the one to better conflict.
Right. And then I think one thing that I don't think you explicitly mentioned when you talked about trying to prioritize moving up, but also I would think that you also need to prioritize as much as you can walkthroughs, because once those happen, they're usually done. So if you think that, even if you I know that there have been times in the past where we thought that it was all going to work out, that then as it runs, you're getting closer and closer. You already have your dog out, but you see that they started walking in the other ring. And sometimes you kind of have to in that moment, be like, okay, hold my dog. I'm going to go walk that course for 2 minutes and then I'm going to come back. So do you pay extra attention to walkthroughs?
Yes. At AKC Nationals, for example, I always walk in the general walk. Just so that if I miss a walkthrough, I've already got myself familiar with the course. Same thing at local trials. If they have them, I'll do the general walk. And so, yes, not only moving up the run, but also walking in an early group. So again, if it's small to tall and you're a 16 and you worry, maybe walk with the 8s and 12s. Let somebody know, let the judge know. So if somebody's not seeing you out there walking in the wrong height, but let them know, hey, you're walking early for the potential of conflicts, or again, walk in that general walkthrough, because absolutely that scenario has come up many, many times where you don't think there's going to be a conflict. And then there's a ring delay because the batteries died and they need to change out. And then they need to clean up where a dog had an accident in the ring. And all of a sudden it's falling behind. And the walkthrough is going on while you're in the other ring and you miss that. So walking in advance, preparing in advance, same thing with moving up in the run order. Absolutely great advice. And I think also we talk about planning which dogs you're going to take and prioritizing certain dogs. But I think then it can still happen that in the moment you run into this situation and everything's falling apart and things aren't going the way that you had planned timing wise, that you may even have to, in the moment, make priority decisions and be like, well, if I miss that run with this dog, okay, but I really need this cue for nationals with this dog. And so it's not just about prioritizing ahead of time, but also being willing to make those calls day of, hour of, or whatever, of what's most important to you. And then let go of what you can't do, right? If everything just falls apart, it's just kind of oh, well, right? Get what you can get out of, the runs that you can do, and then move on. And I think some of this also speaks to knowing yourself. So how stressed out do you get when you're rushed, right? Jen is probably at this point, especially pretty chill, especially in a local trial, right? If the things are not working out, she can't walk, she's just going to be all right, that's fine. But there are other people that even just the specter of the conflict can stress them out so much that they don't perform as well, right? So know yourself and know what you can handle, and either
get better at the mental side, or don't put yourself in that situation by the way that you schedule your trials. And then I think, just like knowing yourself, you have to know your dog. So, I've seen you with your dogs, and even just listening to you talk about other people warming them up, it sounds like you don't have very many problem dogs. But, when you have like that problem dog, I call it the busy bee dog, like from what was the show? Best in Show, the Best in Show movie, where they had the little bee and they couldn't do anything. And that was more of the handlers, I think.
Special squeaky toy.
The special squeaky toy. And they were like freaking out because they didn't have it. And so I think of that. I feel like there are handlers that are busy bee handlers, and there's dogs that are busy bee dogs. There's a lot of crossover there. Where people really need things to be just so. And if you're like that, or your dog is like that, like if you can't get your dog out too early, but you can't get them out too late, like that is probably a red flag that you might need to be careful about how you enter things, so that you can give you and your dog what you need to put in your best effort at that run.
Yeah, absolutely. High five can be a lot of dog. And it's become my process that Abby has to be High Five's handler. I was thinking that, like in horse racing, there's the horse, the stable pony, that like the one person that like takes him out or helps him. And I'm like, Abby, I need you to help me with High Five, because High Five is very routine and we have a very specific pattern of how we do things. And I have to have Abby. Abby has to be the one to help me with High Five. She does a great job. So all the Shelties are pretty low maintenance and pretty easy, but yeah.
And without even asking him, I know that one of Estevan's big key points that he is going to want to make about how to do your best, even when you don't seem to have enough time and you only get part of your walk through, or you miss the walk, or, you're waiting for your next dog, or you have multiple dogs. What is it?
Oh, wait, she pointed at the notes here. Visualization.
Yes, that Estevan is always on top of visualization as the key to getting your best performance, even with what would seem like limited time.
Yeah, if you have two dogs and they're in the same height class, you're in a local trial, and you live in an area where the show isn't very big for whatever reason, single ring. Well, I suppose the two ring show could be worse if you had the two dogs running basically at the same time at two different levels. But let's just assume you're at a single ring trial. Let's say there's only 6 dogs in your class. Oh, I know a real example. Back in the day, they used to have the 26-inch class, right, for tryouts and all that stuff, and then 24C. So you might have 2 dogs, right? So you got kind of your older dog and then your upcoming hotshot dog, and now you got 2 dogs, and you might be the only 2 dogs in the class. That there are people who are constantly in that situation at local trials. So you got to run one dog, and then you got to take a quick breath and do the other. I find that people, especially the judges, are very, very accommodating. When you get to AKC Nationals, at least, also very accommodating. I think the understanding in our sport is that people have multiple dogs. That is the default, right? If you're typically running just one dog, you might be the exception. And so they really build around that. But as you said, visualization, I think, is really important. It's probably one of the underlying pillars of Jennifer's success, because she is such a big visualization person as well. And, because of our history with the visualization and having done so many runs, we could probably miss a walkthrough at a big event, or watch 10, 15 dogs run, memorize the course, even without a map, and then get out there and run it pretty well. I'm not going to lie, but that takes practice and skill and work, but it's something that you can invest and think of as a skill that you want to acquire, right? So add that to your skill set. I think it's definitely going to be well worth it.
I think for me, a lot of that visualization can occur while I'm in the process of switching from one dog to the other, right? So I'm walking back to the crates to get the other one out. And as I'm walking, I'm not walking and talking to my friends. I'm walking and reviewing that course in my head, making sure I know where my crosses are, where the jumps are. Same thing as I come back. I know we've talked a lot about my warm-up jump routine and how I use the warm-up jump as part of my visualization process. So maximizing your time, maximizing your efficiency would be great. The other thing is give yourself some extra practice. If you think there is a potential that you'll run into that problem at a bigger event, which is going to carry more stress, like nationals, practice some of that stuff. Maybe force yourself at a local event to only walk for 4 minutes instead of the full 8, and then work on more of that mental side of things, that visualization, that dealing with the nerves and the stress, so that by the time nationals rolls around, you get better at it. That was something that I was told to do and practice growing up and coaching under Linda Mecklenburg. She would have me I would come to trials and she would like put her arm up and go, "You're not walking this course. You're going to stand here and you're going to watch it and you're going to run it." And then I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay." And so getting a lot of practice at it in preparation for that stress at a big event or the visualization aspect is really good too.
Yeah, absolutely. I do that a couple times a year as well. Usually it's when I'm late to a trial and I show up and I missed the walkthrough and I say, okay, so this is a visualization training exercise it's just turned into.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's it for this week's podcast. We hope that helps you with your own stressful ring conflicts in your own training. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Synoviton OA and hititboard.com. Happy training.
Thank you for listening to Bad Dog Agility. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, updates, and links to all our socials, just check out our website, www.baddogagility.com. If you haven't already signed up for our email subscription, we would love to have you join the BDA community. Until next time, take care.